Hello, everybody. So as people are still coming in, I know that it's gonna, take a little minute as people are trickling in, but could you all just talk to the person next to you and kind of talk about what brings you pure joy? This is just a good way for us to start. It kind of talks about like why we're wearing this shirt today. People always get really excited when they talk about what brings them pure joy, so we thought that starting this talk with that would be a great way. So. There's like multiple pens, guys, so you can just like crowd around and this is this. I don't really know, they're doing their own raffle, so like just just like take pens. Just write your name, it's just a raffle if you want to win something. Huh? It's good. It's like it's well because I want to like give people time to like come in, but I also want to get started, so it's just like I don't know what to do. There's cookies over there, but we're gonna wait a second because the second batch has to come. Okay. So yeah, just like wait till like after. All right, everyone. I hope you guys had good conversations. We're going to get started now. All right. I just want to quickly introduce myself before we get into all the speakers. So I'm Lexi Dubreuil. I go by she, her, hers. I'm a senior business student and a minor in community action and social change. So I kind of just want to share what my aim for the event was. It basically is to give all of you the chance to explore a variety of ways which mental health, mindfulness, and positive psychology manifest in the workplace, classroom, and everyday life. So I want everyone to know that being extremely cognizant of your mental health is not just for people with cognitive disabilities. Everyone goes through stressful times, points of uncertainty, heartbreak, losses, and I want everyone to understand why mental health should be a priority and how you can apply these tools that you'll learn today in your own life. So a bit of like the logistics. So after each speaker, we have 5 speakers. I'm going to take about like 3 questions depending on how long it takes for those to get answered. But at the end, we'll have a mix and mingle session so you guys can all come up to all the speakers and ask any questions that you may have. And please use the journals to write down any questions or anything you want to ask the speakers after and just take notes on the session. So thank you again for everyone that came out today. And this is a schedule. So first we have Lianne Lyne, and she is really amazing. She's a founder of 2 very highly acclaimed companies. And so welcome her as she's about to talk about getting your mind tough.
Thank you. Come on in, guys. So can you hear me clearly enough? Yeah. I don't like to have it too close. Okay. So I like to start any presentation I give by talking a little bit about my career, especially when I'm talking to students, because I think it's really important to understand that careers are not generally linear in nature. Sometimes they're a bit messy, and certainly my career has been quite messy. The one thread I would say that links everything I've done is performance. So I understand performance from a performer's perspective. I train professionally in dance at the sister school to the Martha Graham School in London. And I understand performance from behind the camera as a producer of TV commercials. And I also understand performance from a theoretical perspective, having worked in the UK as a sports psychology consultant, and now in my role as an executive coach, working with executives in Fortune 500 companies. So, the Japanese say that in crisis, people show their true character. So what would you say is your default behavior under pressure? Would you say that you lose control of your emotions? Would you say that you withdraw? Would you say that you become stuck? Or would you consider yourself to be mentally tough? So mental toughness is best thought of as a mindset that in some part explains how we perform when we're under pressure or against stresses or challenge. And studies consistently link mental toughness with performance, the adoption of positive behaviours, and also well-being. So in the workplace, mentally tough individuals show greater commitment to setting and achieving goals and targets. They respond more positively to challenge. They deal with adversity and setbacks with greater confidence and have a stronger sense of being able to control their destiny. So they're better at prioritizing their workloads and focus on continuous improvement and achieving their best. And so mental toughness refers to an individual's resilience and an inner drive to succeed, especially when the going is challenging. And it explains why when you have two people in the same workplace, why one person would struggle under pressure and another would thrive. So one of the techniques I use to build a client's mental toughness is mindfulness. Studies have shown that practicing mindfulness, even for a few weeks, can bring about a variety of benefits, including an increase in positive emotions while reducing negative emotions and stress. So mindfulness helps us focus. Studies suggest that mindfulness helps us tune out distractions and improves our memory and attention skills. It's a superpower. And because of that, more and more corporations are building mindfulness programs for their employees. So at General Mills, 80% of senior executives who attended their 7-week mindfulness course reported that they had improved their decision-making process. And 89% said they'd become a better listener. Employees at Intel reported enhanced creativity, well-being, focus, decreased stress levels, and stronger enthusiasm for projects and meetings. We all need that. And after the first year of its mindfulness program, Aetna reported a huge $9 million saving in healthcare costs, in addition to reduced stress and increased productivity. And these improvements were estimated to be adding a $3,000 value per employee per year. So companies are developing powerful leaders who use mindfulness to make sure every confrontation doesn't escalate into a fight or flight event, whose communication is more effective because they're able to harness empathy and active listening skills. They have more creative, productive, stress-free employees, and they're saving a fortune. And it's not just large corporations who have embraced mindfulness in their organizations, but also schools, prisons, the US Forest Service, and the Marines. And they hoped that mindfulness meditation might help them with an epidemic of PTSD. But they also thought it could make troops less vulnerable to being provoked into a disproportionate response by making them less reactive. So, what's mindfulness? Well, John Kabat-Zinn says mindfulness is paying attention in a particular way, on purpose, in the present moment, and non-judgmentally. So in simple terms, mindfulness is the ability to observe what's going on in our heads without getting carried away with it. It's the capacity to feel sensations, even painful ones, without allowing them to control us. Mindfulness means being aware of our experiences, observing them without judgment, and responding from a place of clarity and compassion rather than from fear or insecurity. So studies show that mindfulness strengthens our immune systems, enhances concentration, and rewires our brains. So just as lifting weights at the gym makes our muscles stronger, practicing mindfulness makes our mind stronger. One of the ways we cultivate mindfulness is through meditation. So mindfulness meditation doesn't require us to wear robes or chant in a foreign language or even sit cross-legged on the floor. It really asks that we take a comfortable position, either sitting or laying down or standing, and observe our thoughts, emotions, and sensations. But enough about talking about it. Let's have a little, very, very short practice. So if you feel comfortable, you just sit upright in a what we call a dignified position. Head upright, back straight. And if you feel comfortable, close your eyes. If you'd rather keep your eyes open, just lower your gaze, soften it, and look gently into the distance. So now bring your attention to the fact that you are breathing. Focus on the place where you feel the breath coming in and out most strongly, whether that's through your nose, maybe through your chest rising and falling, or perhaps through your belly expanding and contracting. Keep your focus on the feeling of your breath. And whenever you feel your attention has been carried elsewhere, wherever that may be, simply note it, let it go, and take your attention gently back to the breath. Don't give yourself a hard time because your mind has wandered. Simply return to the breath. And each time you become aware of your mind wandering, note briefly what led your mind away without judging it or getting carried off into the story, and gently bring your attention back to the breath, back to your belly, to your breathing. Okay, open your eyes. So it's simple, but it's hard. And you'll notice that your mind has a tendency to race around a lot. So even if you made a determination to be completely focused on the breath, you'll find that after a while your mind will wander off, forget to be focused on the breath. And that's human nature. The trick is that each time you notice your mind somewhere else, gently bring it back to the breath. And by doing this, you're training your mind to be less reactive and more stable, and developing your natural ability to concentrate. Just 10 minutes of mindfulness practice each day can create tremendous benefits, making you more productive, more creative, less reactive, improve your communication, make you a better listener, reducing your stress levels, helping you be more positive, and helping you take back control of your life. And it's simple to incorporate small mindfulness exercises into your day to train your brain. So start your day in the right way. So research shows us that on waking, our systems are flooded with the stress hormone cortisol, as we think about the day ahead. So rather than reaching for the phone and checking messages or looking at the news, try just for 2 minutes lying in bed, noticing the breath. And as thoughts about your day pop into your head, note them and go back to the breath. So at any point of the day, you can take a break and listen to a guided meditation or breathing exercise. There are some great apps such as Calm and Headspace. And UC San Diego and UCLA have got great free resources as well on their websites and lots of free guided meditations you can use. So if you find yourself snacking when you feel tired during the day, instead of kind of wolfing it down quickly, mindlessly, try mindful eating. So pick up the packet of whatever it is, maybe some M&Ms or something, and feel the pack. Notice it, have a really good look at it, what kind of sounds it makes. You know, really put it up to your nose and sniff, because you can often smell what's inside from the outside of the pack. When you open it carefully and mindfully. Hear the sounds, let the aroma sweep over you, and then take out a piece of the snack and observe it. Just notice all the details on the snack. Pop it into your mouth and just hold it on your tongue without actually chewing or swallowing it. And see what other sensations you notice. What are you thinking at that moment? What are the feelings that come up for you when you put that snack into your mouth and put it on your tongue? Does your mouth water? What else is happening? I think you get the idea. And the practice of journaling, you've been given a journal here, so the practice of journaling cultivates self-awareness by helping you become more aware of your thoughts and feelings. So you can journal by writing free flow and just setting a timer and just writing whatever comes into your head until the timer goes off. Or you can also journal by being deliberate and taking time to think or reflect while you're writing. So you might want to leave here, for example, after this talk and perhaps spend a few minutes journaling by using the prompt, what surprised me most about this talk was, for example, but you can pick anything. So mindfulness provides us with greater mental clarity, seeing things with an open-minded awareness. It provides a place where we can observe our own thoughts and feelings as they arise. So wrestling with your mind, repeatedly hauling your attention back to the present is a hardcore endeavor. But this superpower provides countless benefits, from enhanced creativity and better health to increased focus and an unyielding resilience. However, arguably the most powerful of its benefits is that instead of reacting rashly, mindfulness enables you to be able to choose how to respond under pressure, and that can be life-changing. So there's a Japanese proverb that says, fall down 7 times, get up 8, stand up 8. And it means that what matters isn't the bad things that happen, but what you do after. And that's Mind Tough. Thank you.
We're going to take a few questions after each speaker, so does anyone have any immediate questions? You'll have the chance to come up to Lianne and ask her other questions after it's over, during our mix and mingle session, but in case you all have any questions right now. No? Okay.
Does anybody have any observations about what happened when they tried to concentrate and focus and clear their mind, for example? Yes. Right.
Maybe you wouldn't normally notice.
Yes, and so the trick when you notice sounds is as long as you don't allow them to distract you, so don't tell a story about what those sounds might be, just note what the sounds are. So if you hear somebody walk into the room, don't start to tell the story about that somebody walking into the room and now they're going to walk up the stairs and sit in the chair. Just note that there was a sound and then take your attention back to the breath again. Yes?
How do you decipher between being tired versus actually being in a mindful state?
So when you practice mindfully consistently, it actually gives you energy rather than making you feel tired. So at first, when you start to practice it, you can feel very relaxed. But actually, as you begin to practice it more and more, you become very alert. It's energizing. That's how you can tell. Anybody else? No? Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, so next up we have Afton Hassett. She is an associate research scientist at the university, and she's going to be presenting on the happiness in the age of distraction. So please welcome her.
Can you hear me okay? Is my mic on? All right, that's me. Here's my talk. And I begin with this. Familiar sight? Have we all seen this? Right? A group of friends, clearly friends, sitting close to each other, right? Not a soul speaking with each other. This is the age of distraction, right? So in theory, technology came along so that we would be able to have more time to do fun things, so that we could connect more easily, so that we would have lots of leisure time, but none of that has really seemed to pass. It just seems like we spend more and more time doing email and everything else. And we have noticed that the connectivity is greater, but the isolation is greater too, and as is anxiety and depression. So why would that be? Research tells us that social media probably plays the largest role in this. So when we spend a lot of time trying to find affirmation through likes, and somehow trying to lead a life that rivals these beautiful lives that we see online and Facebook and Instagram, that we're always going to feel like we fall a little short. I mean, everybody in these beautiful lives, do they ever fail a midterm? No. Do they ever have a bad hair day? Never, by the pictures. Do they ever have smelly feet? No. Nothing goes wrong in their lives. How can you rival that? And so research even tells us that this is true. There was a recent study that looked at the number of social media sites that one belonged to and found a direct correlation with the level of anxiety and depression. So we know this is a thing. So how do we find happiness in this age of distraction? The good news is there is a whole cadre of researchers that do nothing but think about this, and they've been around for decades, and many of them are here at the University of Michigan. This is one of the birthplaces of positive psychology. Me, I came into this thing as what my friend Chris Peterson, who was here, and one of the fathers of positive psychology, used to call a business as usual psychologist. I learned how to study anxiety and depression and negative thinking in chronic pain patients. That was my dissertation, that was my work. But what I soon discovered is that about a third of my patients weren't anxious or depressed. As a matter of fact, they were thriving despite having chronic pain. Who were these people that were messing up my studies? And so what I began to wonder is maybe there's something else to be learned here. Maybe if I study these resilient individuals, I can pass this on to the other patients and make it all that much better. But what I needed to do first, because heaven knows I didn't have positive psychology in my graduate training, is I had to learn about happiness in general and what happiness is in regular people other than pain patients. So if you were an alien and you were dropped on the planet Earth and began to wander around and take notes about what makes people happy, I think you might draw a conclusion that it's all about stuff. Right? You look at the TV shows we watch and the print ads that we see and just our behavior, how we're always chasing stuff. But is it really about stuff? So research that has looked at things, big things like a yacht, a super yacht, actually, I don't know. I should know better, but I think if I had the super yacht, I might be happy, but that's kind of beside the point. Real research says that when they look at 9,000 people in this kind of consumer research study, one of the best that's done looking at this, and what they did is they looked at whether or not people really valued the things that they bought or the experiences they had. And what do you think people thought made them happier? Experiences, exactly, right? So it doesn't seem that way. We're always chasing stuff, but it's about experiences. That's what makes us happy. And what's really interesting is that we adapt to stuff. So we see things in our mind that we think we want, we plan for them, we chase them down, we save for them, we get them, and we're happy for a brief period of time. And it fades. And then we start thinking about the next thing that we need to get, and we start chasing that. Whereas experiences get richer and better with time. Think about that. When we're together with friends, we tell stories about it, we take pictures of that moment, we tell others about that time, and over time that experience is actually seen as something that's even more positive than when it happened in the first place. So, if experiences make us happy, maybe big, huge peak experiences like running with the bulls or swimming with sharks or climbing Mount Everest, maybe that makes us the happiest. What do you think? Is that possible? These huge things make us happy? Research tells us probably not. So again, in a series of studies looking at individuals who had these superior experiences, these amazing experiences, and likened it to your happiness in just regular social interaction, which is actually a great surrogate for kind of just being a happy person. If you enjoy talking to your friends and hanging out, you're probably just kind of generally happy, right? So what they looked at is while people who had these peak experiences loved talking about their peak experiences and having this over other people, they actually began to enjoy their everyday interactions less. And they actually ended up being less happy than if they had never had these big peak experiences in the first place. So what I'm saying is don't give up on having big, fun, huge, exciting experiences, but just be aware that there are benefits and costs to these. So this is another research project. This is a group of University of Michigan researchers conducting a very important study. There are 4 of us in the back having a fabulous time. We are all PhD, PsyD, other types. The physicians in front, though, having a very different experience. They told us it was very scary in front, so we couldn't pass judgment on them. But I'll tell you, our research, and actually that of like real researchers, Brewer and colleagues, what they found is that novel experiences with a group of friends tends to bring us the most lasting, great happiness. This is kind of where it's at. So let's go back to our birds on a wire here, not engaging. What can we do to start changing some of our levels of happiness? Maybe here we could start by using our devices for good. How about, I'm going to challenge you guys to do this after we meet here. Text one person with whom you've not spoken to in a while, out of the blue. Text them, somebody preferably in Ann Arbor or someplace where you can get, and make an appointment to get together with them. Something face-to-face. Do something. Do this every single week for the next month on the same day, like maybe pick a Monday, and just text somebody out of the blue. Hey, let's go get ice cream. Hey, let's go see a movie. Give that a try. Let's use these devices for good. Another thing that we can do is take a device holiday. When was the last time you didn't check your iPhone or your laptop and you let go of your email for a whole day? I want to see a hand. Who has done that in the last year? Oh, that's awesome. That's way more than I usually see. This is a great thing to do once in a while. Have a little device holiday, okay? Even maybe limit social media use. Since we learned that social media is one of the great aggravators of our poor mood, maybe just limit social media to half an hour a day. And other things that we can do. There are a number of evidence-based interventions. These are all kind of the part and parcel of positive psychology and the things that we put together into a comprehensive treatment program, but you can do each of these at any time. And what's great about these interventions is you don't have to have a therapist. You just do these things. So the first thing I'm going to suggest is similar to what we were talking about with our text. Make appointments to have fun, right? So you need to take time, actually I skipped one, you need to take time on your calendar, schedule it in with the same seriousness that you would a doctor's appointment, and plan something fun that you want to do. This could be engaging in your hobby. If you're a painter, paint. If you're a photographer, photograph. This could be going to coffee with your good friends. I actually have a student who has a little group of friends, and what they do is they go to a different ethnic restaurant every week, and they have their kind of this weird and wonderful food adventure. Sometimes it's Tibetan and Middle Eastern and Chinese, and there's Ethiopian. There's a lot of wonderful restaurants in Ann Arbor to explore. So another great intervention that you can do, and actually my class just got through doing a week ago, is random acts of kindness. So this is simply doing something that you are mindful and willing to do that's out of the ordinary. Set out to do potentially 5 acts of kindness in one day. That's actually what science tells us is the best dose of kindness. And it doesn't matter if you do these acts for total strangers, for great friends and family, or for yourself. They all tend to make you equally happy. So conduct some acts of kindness. And then this is an intervention that we're doing in our lab. This is called the Positive Piggy Bank, and why we have these guys up front. What the Positive Piggy Bank is a way to help you think about the special moments that happen every day that we might not even think of. And what we do is we instruct people to take a piggy bank, but you can use a box or a festive bag or something like that. And what you do is every day, at the end of the day, think about the things that happened that day that made you happy. We spend a lot of time at the dinner table, whatever, talking about the stuff that upset us that day. This is a very different take. Think about the things that made you happy. Pick one of them. Spend a moment savoring it, being very mindful, enjoying what that moment was like for you. Try and engage your senses. Who was there? What did we hear? What did I smell? What did I feel? Really, really solidify this memory and write it down on a little piece of paper and pop it in a piggy bank. Do this every day for 30 days, and at the end of the 30 days, open up the piggy bank and look at all these little things that happened over the last 30 days that you might have forgotten about. But this helps you become more mindful about the good things that happen in your life every day. And we've tested this in a number of different populations, and the most interesting one was in breast cancer patients who are ready to undergo surgery. In the first place, I thought that the oncologists were going to laugh us out of the building when we proposed this to them, but they said, no, come on in, let's see. Then I thought the patients were going to laugh at us. My gosh, they were just diagnosed with breast cancer. They're going to have surgery. This is going to be terrible. And they thought, no, let's give this a try. And what we found in the 2 to 3 weeks that they did the Positive Piggy Bank before surgery, the group who did the piggy bank on the morning of surgery had less pre-surgical anxiety, less depressive mood, and more energy, just by doing this silly little thing. So this can be a very effective thing for you to try as well. So those are little things that you can do. There are also big things that you can do. One of the biggest things that you can do is understand more about your purpose in life. Now, most of you are probably under 25, and it's probably hard to know what your purpose in life is at this point, right? But maybe you have some idea, some vague idea about which way in general you're sailing, right? And if you don't, think about it, because finding what is really meaningful and important to you is probably one of the best things you can do to secure your happiness. And once you feel like you know which direction you're going, every day try to do one small thing that gets you an inch closer to this destination, right? Now, another important thing to know as you're on this long trip and towards your purpose in life is not to tell yourself, I will be so happy once I get there. I will be so happy once I achieve this thing I see as my purpose in life. No, 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 no. The goal is to have moments of grace and realize them and enjoy them along the way. Be mindful and aware of all the good things that happen, even the bad things, but have an awareness. Because what's important for you to remember is it's really about being mindful. It's about being in the moment, enjoying experience with others, knowing in your heart that the journey is just as important as the destination. Thank you.
Again, does anyone have any questions right off the bat? Any comments? Yeah?
You said that people with big social interaction, big experience had diminished social interaction later. Why was that?
So they actually just found the social interaction to be less joyful. And I think it's almost like people can kind of become almost adrenaline junkies. So these really big experiences become by what you judge all joyful events. And all of a sudden it's just like, wow, nothing's really reaching that. And so these everyday things just kind of seem to be less happiness inducing.
If you peak, and like I don't think I felt that myself afterwards. So it was like interesting to see that was like
when you've had a peak experience. Yeah. So, I think like any other research, it's kind of a conglomeration of talking to a lot of folks, and people have very different experiences. And I think that's also why I added, don't not do big things, right? Enjoy big things, but also just be aware that there could be costs, too, to the benefits. Yes?
Do you think there's any sort of correlation between technology and kind of the commitment level that we face? Like, I know you said appointments for happiness. Think about in that my life, a lot of people like kind of flake out at the last minute.
Ah, so maybe, I think it's often about technology, and I think that you even, if you're going to do that, have appointments to do fun things, even have a backup. Because if you set aside this time that you're going to do something wonderful, do something wonderful. And it might not necessarily be that thing with that person who flaked on you, but it might be something else that you know where you can have a really good, gratifying experience. Great.
Thank you so
Good,
much.
thank you. Oh,
Also, yeah, we're gonna
one more thing.
We're gonna do the raffle.
We're going to do a quick
the
raffle.
piggy bank
So
raffle,
also, I have the Positive Piggy Bank instructions. I didn't get a chance to put them in your goodie bag, but please come and grab these so you'll have them, because you can do Positive Piggy Bank with using anything. So come and grab these. But now we're going to do the raffle real quick.
Yeah.
All righty. I'm going to let you draw.
Oh gosh.
Okay. All righty. Okay. Can you feel one in there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Here we go. You got one.
Courtney. Where's she at?
Courtney! Yay! Okay, there's put the little bottom in, and I've got a little bag for you to take it home, and here's your instructions. Okay, one more. Here we go. Now, hopefully I'm not going to break a nail, because that would make me very unhappy. Let's see here. Uh-oh. Oh, almost got it. Okay. Wow. I can't get this one. Oh, have any luck? Okay. Ah. Okay.
We're having a little bit of a struggle with this one, so we'll work on this piggy bank, and then we'll do it after the next talk.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll get this open. Okay, good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Okay.
much. Okay. So now we have Marna. She has done a lot of amazing work as a therapist and a librarian at the university. So please welcome her as she talks about identity and mental health.
How's everybody doing tonight? Can everybody hear me? This is my third lecture today. I'm gonna make you guys. How do I put this on? Oh, there we go.
Yeah, there. You can clip this too, or you can just
Oh, I still got my
drop
badge.
it in there.
Okay. All right, so you are my third lecture for the day, and unlike the last presenter, thank you very much about unplugging. What happened there? Oh, there we go. I need my phone because I am on call right now. I've got 2 emergency admits that I'm getting ready to do tonight. This is me. So, when I put this quote up, what do you guys think about? Anybody? I work really well by feedback. So, I'm going to pick on somebody. How about you? Yeah, what do you think about? Feel happy? Yeah. And I mean, as you can tell, I don't have any experience public speaking. I really hate it. But anybody else? Yes.
I mean, I think it's just saying that it's important to know who you are and like what your values are.
Exactly. And if I had a prize, I would give it to you. But like I said, I've been running all over the city today. So they're in my car, and it was wet. So come see me at the library, okay? This is who I am. These are my professional identities. I am a clinician. I work for Amplify Collectivo, which is a private practice in Ann Arbor, Ypsilanti, and soon Detroit, run by women of color. And we have like 9 offices right now. I am also at Catholic Social Services. where I do the same thing that I do at the first place, but I just split my time with 3 other offices. I am also a librarian here at the University of Michigan Libraries. My office is across the street at the Grad, room 104. Come visit me. I love people. And I do have a Keurig, so if you want to come and have coffee, come see me. Okay? What I do there, I work with the selection team for multicultural studies, as well as school social work and the social work discipline. And I also work with students, teach, instruct. My clinical practice is comprised of this. I'm not going to read it to you. You guys are smart enough. You can read it. I know you can. Okay? What didn't I put up there? I'll go back. What didn't I include as my identities? I know you got it. I can see it on your face. Well, name. Yes, my name is Marna. What else? A little deeper. Education, gender, race. Relationship. Yes, I am married with 3 dogs. So if anybody wants my husband, raise your hand. He is yours. Okay? I also didn't put anything down there about anything else about myself. I am of mixed race. I am Cuban, Native American, Jewish, African American, white. Pretty much my mom calls us Heinz 57 because there's so much in there. But I did not include that for a reason because I wanted you guys to get there. Part of what I do is I lecture on identity. And part of the population that I work with the most is clients who come in with identity issues. And part of those issues leads to other behaviors. Alcoholism, drug abuse, eating disorders, which I see a lot of people with eating disorders, self-harm issues, grief, stress. Identity and mental health. Why is identity important? Identity is important because it helps you develop a strong sense of yourself, develop good self-esteem. It also helps you to adapt to changes that happen in our world. Is changing all around us all the time. If I'm moving too fast, please tell me to stop because I feel like I'm talking really fast. And the ability to make good decisions about things that we do. What issues have I seen from a lot of my clients? And I have a client load of about 57 clients between both practices. I've seen, like I said, anxiety, addictions, behavior problems, which include cutting, fighting, anger issues, depression, eating disorders, insecurity, codependency, etc. I've seen it all. How does intersectionality play into identity? As someone who is mixed race, educated, married, hoping they were single, no, kidding. These all play different roles, and you can see the identity wheel, and I know you guys have done it. How many have done the identity wheel that they do here? See, a couple hands, everybody's seen it. Just why I didn't bring it, because I knew you knew what it was. So there we go. But not having a natural peer group, individuals engage in more risky behaviors. And I've seen a lot of people have issues with alcoholism, oxy addictions, so forth and so on. Ways that I treat issues in my clients. As a librarian, I know where to find books. I know what books work with what issues. So I do bibliotherapy. I don't know if a lot of clinicians do that, but I do. The best books in the world to read, young adult novels, because I read really fast, and I can understand them, because adult novels are too big for me. I can't do it. But my clients really connect, and the emotion in these stories are great. So I have a database that I compiled of all of the books that work really well with different mental health issues. Doesn't cure them, but it helps people talk about them. Majority of the clients that I see are people of color. The majority of the problems that they come in with, like I said, is identity, but the mental health issues that they're dealing with, eating disorders. Bulimia, anorexia, EDNOS, orthorexia, so forth and so on. So mindfulness, someone did a great thing on mindfulness, which is I'm glad I didn't do it because it was wonderful. But I do mindfulness all the time with my clients, and it helps. And it works really well. I do it for self-care, for myself. I was doing it back there, I almost fell asleep, it was great. Any questions? I'm going to make it short because, like I said, you guys are my third group. But I wanted to be here because I think this is important. So any questions? No questions. Oh.
You talked about recommending books to your clients for specific mental health issues, but do you just have one that you really like that you'd recommend?
It depends. Let's see, the last one I recommended was for someone who was dealing with bullying and transgender issues, George. It's a great book. It is, it's at the library, 3rd floor, south side of the building, okay? It is a great book because it talks about, and it's a very sweet book that talks about this young man who is transgender and is transitioning to a girl and wants to play Charlotte and Charlotte's Web in the school play. So he gets bullied for it, teachers tell him he can't do it. I'm not going to give it away, so you're going to have to read it. There you go. Any other questions? Yes?
Any other patients like with behavioral issues kind of like look at you like you're crazy to make them read if they don't have a history of reading or don't naturally like read in their free time?
I have one that has not bought into the reading. Incredibly smart, incredibly gifted, very tough to work with, but I got them to cry. And that's the key right there, because I broke through. Now they can't stop reading. I keep telling them, don't bring me any more books. They recommend books to me. So, but there are clients that I work with that are very resistant to change, and it's waiting in that space with them until they are ready to make that change. Any other questions? I saw other hands. Yes.
So as college students, most of the time they're reading, I am not a student, but most of the time they're reading college reading,
Yeah.
academic
Yeah.
books. How would you infuse reading for joy then?
How do you practice self-care for yourself right now?
I'm not a full-time student.
Doesn't matter. How do you practice self-care?
I make time for it.
You make time, and what do you do?
I read.
Okay, there we go. You make time for it. That's exactly what it is. It's just like I always tell people that I work with who come in and they have huge anxiety and they're like, I can't do what I need to do because I'm so busy. I said, what do you do for lunch? I sit at my desk and I eat. Schedule time for self-care in your calendar. Block it off so that no one is going to schedule a meeting for you. You've already got it built in, and have an activity for yourself. And I always tell people, do not eat at your desk because you're associating work with food. It doesn't work. Because then you're going to do more work rather than eat. But scheduling it in, make time for yourself. You, yourself, your mental health, your physical self are very important. So how many of you guys go to the library? Okay, good. I'm just checking.
No more questions?
Oh yeah, you got it open? Okay, we're gonna do the raffle now that we got the piggy bank open. Hannah? Ooh, G? Yeah. Where are you at? Okay.
For those who piggyback, there's little boxes over here you can put them in.
All right. Thank you so much. Okay. So now we have Traci, who is a PhD candidate in the School of Public Health. Please welcome her as she talks about diet culture and mental health. You can like flip it or hold it. How does this go in? Up there.
This is fancy.
And then here's the clicker.
Okay. You're good. Thank you. Woo, that is me. I just want to thank Maddie and Alexis and the rest of the Joy Soldiers for having me out today. My name is Traci Carson, and like Alexis said, I'm currently a PhD candidate in epidemiology at the University of Michigan School of Public Health. So I'm going to talk about diet culture. So again, that's me. My research focuses specifically on eating disorders in female athletes. Right now, all my research is on varsity distance runners in college. So I'm excited to see what comes out of that. I'm only in my second year, so lots more work to go. A little bit about my history, and I'll talk more about that in a couple of slides. But I have personally struggled with an anxiety disorder and an eating disorder. And I really like to speak out about those topics and fight the stigma, because I really believe until we're able to talk about our mental health and kind of other psychosocial struggles, like we can a broken arm or having the flu, that stigma is going to persist. So now, just bear with me. I hope this works. I really believe we're all born with this level of confidence. So I think she is my spirit animal. But unfortunately, somewhere along the way, oops. Okay. There we go. Somewhere along the way, we're kind of hit with this. And these messages are not just targeted at females, but all gender identities are hit with these kinds of messages. I know this was true for me in my experience growing up in the late 90s, seeing Women's Health magazine and just the messages that it portrayed. Those 5 minutes to fabulous abs and lose 7 pounds in 7 days. Those really hit me hard growing up and kind of shaped my relationship with my body as well as with food. So just a little more about me. I guess how did I go from that little girl on the swing to really struggling with my body image and disordered eating in college? Like I said, some of those cultural messages like Shape magazine and just messages around making our bodies smaller, those really got to me at a young age. I grew up, I remember just being really self-conscious about my legs. That was my target area. Always struggled with body image. And throughout middle school and high school, kind of started learning about how can I restrict calories? How can I count calories? How can I shape my body to make other people like me more? And all of those things really came together in college, and that's when I really started to struggle. So my anxiety disorder came out freshman year of college, and then kind of throughout my sophomore, junior year, I started really restricting my food intake, as well as just being really hard on my body, over-exercising, all while trying to be a varsity athlete on the Michigan women's rowing team. So my body was chronically fatigued. I really isolated myself to kind of stick to my rigid eating patterns and exercise routines. So, and then that's me today, not literally today, but a couple months ago. I still struggle with those thoughts and feelings every single day. So I'm here not only as a student researcher and a public health practitioner, but also as a human being who has really struggled with these topics myself throughout my life. So let's get into it. This was the big takeaway for me after a couple years of therapy. I learned that shrinking my physical body was not going to shrink the emotional challenges that were going on in my life. Yeah, so I hope this message really hit me hard, and maybe it resonates with some other people in the audience too. So who has heard of the term diet culture? Like, who has heard that term thrown around? Maybe like half the people here? Cool. So diet culture is a system of beliefs that kind of does a lot of these things under the guise of health. So it equates thinness to health and moral virtue. Thinness does not necessarily always mean health. It promotes weight loss as a means of attaining a higher status in our society. It also hides diets under the guise of lifestyle changes. So look out for those kind of keywords when you see people talking about their new fabulous diet that will improve their life. It also encourages this hyper-vigilant focus on food that you're consuming, as well as your body and body size. And diet culture can be really difficult to identify because it's become such the norm. But just think about these messages and maybe where you see these kinds of, this kind of terminology coming at you from culture. So I want to break down a little bit about what diet culture tells us versus the truth. So first, diet culture tells us that restricting food and food groups will make you feel better, make you healthier, make you happier. But reality is that fueling our body is what's going to keep us energized and feeling good, happy, motivated. Carbs are a great source of energy. Keep it simple. The next message from diet culture is that shrinking our bodies should be our goal. Should always be the goal. That's what our focus in life should be, because people like small bodies. And that's not the truth, but it's also shrinking our bodies to a smaller size than what they should naturally be really can impair proper body functions. And that's a big part of the research that I do. I study the effects of chronic undernutrition and overexercise on the physiological systems of our body. So our bodies are so fascinating that when they don't have enough fuel, they actually start to shut down processes that are not vital. So in women, that's the reproductive system, but it's also growth and development. So those are parts of our body that are really impaired in the state of undernutrition and overexercise. Next, diet culture says that there are good foods and there are bad foods. And I'm sure that's something that some of us might even hold to be true for ourselves. Maybe sugar's bad, vegetables are good. But balanced and diverse diets promote mental and physical health. So you might be saying mental health. Well, if we're really stressed about food all the time, is eating quote-unquote good foods really good for our overall health? That's a question that only you can have with your own mind and body. And then lastly, the newest fad diet will quote-unquote fix you. And as I alluded to earlier, dieting alone and changing your physical body is not going to solve that internal distress. Okay. So again, how does this kind of diet culture mentality link back to mental health? So I have this lovely diagram. We love these in public health. They're called DAGs. So using restrictive eating to cope as a mechanism to deal with internal distress can lead to true neurological changes that increase likelihood of depression. And then that can increase anxiety, perfectionism, and obsessive thoughts about food and body. And then you can see that leads you, unfortunately, back up to using restrictive eating to cope. And then we can get trapped in this kind of vicious cycle that I know personally that I was in for at least 4 or 5 years. So just a friendly reminder, the diet industry doesn't care about you. They care about money, they care about power, but they don't care about the messages that they're putting out into the world that can be truly harmful. And so it's just kind of, I love this note. When we engage in diet culture, quote, they win. And I rely on Instagram for this lovely anecdote that I'm going to share with you guys. Someone wrote, my friend said that whenever she has a bad feeling about her body/appearance, she asks herself, who profits off this emotion? And I just found that to be really powerful. And leading into my next point, oh, just kidding, we're going to talk about this first. I wanted to touch on the difference between eating disorders and disordered eating. They're often used interchangeably. In my research, I use disordered eating to encompass eating disorders. But eating disorders are typically clinically diagnosed disorders, while disordered eating includes a wide range of harmful eating and weight control behaviors. So they may be a little tougher to detect. They're in the subclinical range, but they can be incredibly harmful on the body and mind. And as I'm sure it's not a shock to you all in this room today that eating disorders and disordered eating are a really pervasive issue on college campuses. So 31% of female students have reported disordered eating behaviors, and 29% of male students. So I don't know if that comparison is shocking to some people to see that high of a number for male students. But disordered eating can look different in males than it does in women, but that doesn't mean it's healthy, normal, or good for the body. And just wearing my epidemiology hat, I need to point out that these statistics are likely a huge underestimation of the true prevalence, given underreporting and underutilization of treatment and resources. This leads me to a really kind of heartbreaking statistic that I wanted to share just to drive this point a little bit further. 1 in 4 dieters are known to go on to develop some form of disordered eating. So potentially not a clinical eating disorder, but if you think every 4th person in this room that might try the newest fad diet is going to go on to have an unhealthy relationship with their food and with their body, that really breaks my heart. So I wanted to share this quote from Christy Harrison. She's an eating disorder dietitian. Kind of on this topic of diet culture tries to keep us small. And I'm just going to read the quote because it's so beautifully said. Diet culture is a life thief. When we're caught up in it, food and body preoccupation take up so much real estate in our brains that pursuing any other life goal can feel nearly impossible. So let that sink in for a minute. And to demonstrate, I found this lovely kind of picture example of what your brain looks like on diet culture. So as you can see, about 90% of the brain space, it's a very scientific term that I'm using, 90% of the brain space is full of thoughts about food, negative thoughts about our body, thoughts about restriction, and maybe when are you going to squeeze in that workout and maybe miss out on other opportunities to live and thrive. And then look at how much space is left for everything else in your life. Not a lot, right? Not a lot. But I don't blame you. It's not our fault. That's just what our culture kind of promotes as the norm and how we're supposed to live our lives. But now that brings me to, so what can we do to fight back? Because this was kind of a discouraging talk. Like, okay, we have diet culture. Now what can we do about it? So I have a few ideas. First, let's stop talking about calories and needing to earn your dinner. I feel like that's just such common rhetoric among people of our age. But let's just fuel our bodies. Our bodies are so incredible, and they actually need so much more fuel than a lot of us think that they do. So our bodies have this incredible thing called the basal metabolic rate. And that's the amount of energy our body needs if we were laying in a bed all day in a comatose state. And that number is actually higher than a lot of popular fad diets encourage us to eat in a very active body. So just think about the amount of energy your body truly needs. Fuel it, love it, feed it. My second idea is to talk to yourself like you would talk to a friend. I think a lot of us say things about our body and criticize ourselves in ways that we would never say to a friend. Or at least a friend that you liked. Third, this is a huge one that I still struggle with to this day. Exercise because it makes you feel good, not to punish your body or not to make up for your dinner last night, not to make up for the Halloween candy you ate yesterday, but exercise because it brings you joy and it makes you feel good and it gives you energy. Number 4, one that I have had to implement in my life as well, is clean up your social media following. So if there are accounts that you're following when you're scrolling through Instagram and it causes you to either compare yourself to that person, if that person is promoting restrictive eating, over-exercise, unhealthy weight control habits, unfollow them. They don't deserve your attention. They don't deserve your energy. It's really important that we kind of remove those toxic influences from our life. And I think that's something that's pretty tangible that we can all do today after you leave here. Or right now, go for it. You don't have to listen to me anymore. So clean up your social media following. And last but not least, avoid body comments, please and thank you. Even if it's positive, even if you It's well-meaning. If you're telling a friend like, oh, you look great, if they've lost some weight, we don't know what kind of behaviors we're reinforcing by supporting that, their physical body. So that person may be engaging in some really harmful and painful ways of controlling their weight, and we're just reinforcing that that is what they need to be doing. So let's comment people on their passion. Let's comment them on their smile. Let's compliment them on kind of their passion and drive for whether it's their work, whether it's their school. There's so many other things that we can call out to make people feel good than their physical body. So who has other ideas? What can we do to fight back? I know you have ideas. Or who thinks these are tangible ways of fighting back? Hand? Cool. Awesome. Maddie?
We can surround ourselves with podcasts and read books and totally immerse ourselves in that culture.
Yeah.
The positive culture instead of the negative diet culture.
Cool. Yes.
I try and think about moderation in everything in terms of eating and exercise, because I think people can go both ways on all of those.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes.
Well, we talked about journaling earlier, but I feel like journaling about the good things that you like about you that are more than just your physical appearances.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I think exercise is really important, but rather than having it be an obligation, having it be something fun you can do with friends, if it's a walk in the arc or walking downtown to get dinner instead of driving or taking an Uber, sneaking it in ways that are good for your body and your mind.
Absolutely. Joyful movement. Yeah. Anything else? Yes.
Give yourself positive affirmations. So
Yeah.
before you go to bed, write down 3 to 5 things. You don't have to share them with anyone, but just keep those and remind yourself that you're better than what you really are telling yourself, by yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
When you do exercise, rather than attaining losing 5 pounds, you attain optimal health. Or if I want to feel better about, just get rid of something that you feel in regards to your health.
Yeah, so tying exercise to health goals that are a little bit more generalizable, so just feeling good and not so much the number on the scale. Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you. Those were really beautiful additions to this list. And now I'm just going to leave up this resources slide, and then my email is on there too if you want to contact me, and I will take a couple questions if there's time. Yes.
When you are approached by friends, let's say, that are asking for
kind of comments on their body or just trying to validate what they had for dinner, what's the best way to respond to that? Because a lot of times I find myself just saying yeah, or agreeing with them, and then later I regret doing that because I don't want to promote what they're doing.
Yeah, that can be really tough, and I'm sure a lot of people face that a lot, especially on college campus. When my friends make comments about food or eating too much, I just try to really quickly say something yeah, you're going to have so much energy, that's great, I'm sure it was delicious, and then move on to the next topic. Or if someone says, oh, I'm so guilty, I didn't go to the gym today, but I ate a cookie, it's well, I'm sure that time you use for something else, that's awesome, there's always, future opportunities to engage in physical activity. So kind of quickly, do you have a comment?
I have a question.
Oh, okay. So quickly maybe acknowledging it, putting a positive spin on it, or a more quote-unquote healthy spin on it, and then moving on to the next topic, because when we dwell on those comments or when I think they spread.
How should students handle knowing that they have a friend who has an eating disorder, disordered eating? What's the best thing to do?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think it's tricky because I think to my own experience, and it took a lot of people coming to me and suggesting that I look for help or seek out help for me to actually come to the realization that I needed help. So when friends ask me that, I say, approach that person with love, tell them that you love them and care about them and you really wish that they might go seek help, but don't be frustrated if they don't go right away, because it's a domino effect, I think, for me. Those comments built up over time, and then a couple years later I was like, okay, I really do need help. But I can think back to all those times where people suggested that I seek out advice and help, and that it meant a lot to me. But it will take time for that person to come to the realization, especially at our age. Yeah. Any other questions over here?
One more question.
Yeah.
With the study that you're doing, are you just focusing on runners who already have problems, or like also the other side, like runners who are able to like stay strong and like eat how they would do all good athlete things?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. This summer I did qualitative interviews with women who did have an eating disorder or had outcomes related to low energy availability, which is just a state of not eating enough, whether that's intentional or unintentional. But my next study I'm doing starting next semester, I'll be looking at both healthy and quote-unquote unhealthy athletes. So those with eating disorders and those without. Yeah. All right, great. Thank you.
Okay, so next up we have Brooke Buys. I've had the opportunity to connect with her a lot over the last month and a half, and we've formed a pretty good relationship. So she's going to kind of take it away and wrap up this event. And she's going to be talking about brain, ego, and awareness.
Okay, oh my gosh, look at you all out there. Good evening, how are you? Yeah, thanks for hanging. It's 7:15, I'm happy to be here. My name is Brooke Buys. I'm going to take a little breather because I'm just seeing all the wave of wonderful faces out there. So let's see. I'm the founder and CEO of Blend Health. It's an integrative health management group out of Kalamazoo, Michigan and Ann Arbor, Michigan. Proud University of Michigan alum as well. And what brings me joy, I was able to share with my partner over here. I've got a wonderful husband, 3 young, energetic boys in my life. I love food, I love music, and I love the work I get to do, especially with 20-somethings. So this evening I thought I would blend together some of what we've pulled from previous speakers and talk to you a little bit about 20-something development. If you're no longer a 20-something in this room, you kind of need to give each other a high five, celebrate that. If you've got other 20-somethings in your life, they're a lot of fun. So I'm going to be able to just pull together some insights and nuggets from what we've shared this evening, and then hopefully have some Q&A after. So what we know about development, we spend a lot of time, especially as a parent of young kiddos, I was inundated with a lot of information around 0 to 5 development, right? So we know it's rapid brain development during that time. We also know that how kiddos see the world and how they perceive the world and themselves in the world makes a big difference. So their family system, their attachment, and the influence of their environment. Fast forward, we've got adolescence that actually begins right around 13, 14, 15. We can't really think about development with like a light switch, right? My 9-year-old, I think, is on the cusp of adolescence, but he won't hit that point until about 12 or 13, but I can start to see some really beautiful signs around independence. So what we also know is the brain caps off its second and last growth spurt during the 20s, and then it rewires itself for adulthood. We also know that personality changes more in your 20s than any other time in your life, so that's a lot of personality, identity. I thought I knew what I was doing yesterday. Today I'm not so sure. I think I'm going to go back to yesterday, so it's a lot of that back and forth, right? We also know that the first 10 years of a career impacts earning potential over time. Half of Americans are either living, dating, married to their future partner by age 30. That's why we often stress with the kiddos that quality relationships do matter. So this also includes relationship development with peers, colleagues, professors, how you involve yourself with your relationships and how you manage. It does affect self-care. 80% of our defining moments happen by the age of 35. So these are these decisions, experiences, we call them the aha moments, but sometimes during our 20s, it feels like we're always having an aha moment, right? So I'm going to grab some water. I've been like chewing gum this evening, so. Wow, this came out really bright. Okay, so what's so awesome is all you 20-somethings, you're amazing to work with because you've got a lot of energy, a lot of spark. You're seeking new adventures, you're connecting with relationships, you've got creativity. It's so much fun to work with you all. Also, I see a lot of 20-somethings that wander around like zombies. So also in packs, kind of feeding off of toxicity, negativity. They are unaware of the physiological responses to stress, unaware of some of the cues and signs to negativity, and end up just sort of walking around like these creatures. You know, just maybe take a picture of this if you need to, but this is some really amazing research that's just being shared, and it's with Blackburn and Appel around the telomere effect, which is the concept that we're not always aware of all the chatter that's going on in our heads. So the pessimism, the negativity, sometimes we're born with that. Oftentimes it's a byproduct of our environment or who's influencing those thoughts. So it's super important to slow down, draw awareness, have mindful moments, to be aware of your thought patterns, that you do have a choice in engaging with some of these interpersonal dynamics, and it can be very surprising. Some of us have to slow down to get to know our thought patterns and partner up with someone that might be able to help them with tools and tactics. So I'd like to share a couple narratives with you. It will give you some insight into the work that we do at Blend with 20-somethings, and as well as how we kind of look at the whole body approach. So the first narrative is around Sarah, a young woman we'll just call Sarah, okay. And she came to our team a couple years ago with severe anxiety and panic attacks. Sarah was just 6 months shy of receiving her graduate degree in sports medicine. Sarah also had a lot of vulnerabilities around her childhood, her family system narrative. And so that really made her much more susceptible to some of the risks and how she influenced her behaviors within certain environments. She was not sure that she'd be able to graduate from the program. Her panic attacks, excuse me, would impact her daily with colleagues, with her peers, with the athletes that she was working with. So when we met Sarah, we looked at the whole picture, and we also acknowledged that she was a 20-something. She was in the middle of pretty formative developmental year. We also were very candid with Sarah that we were going to talk to her about her food intake, her sleep hygiene, how she socialized, who she socialized with. We were also able to take some steps with Sarah and provide her with tools and tactics around how to navigate that for better interpersonal dynamics. Sarah was a competitive gymnast in her undergrad, and she was an individual that reported that she bit off more than she can chew. She always was the first one to volunteer at work, to take on an extra shift, and so we were able to talk with her a little bit about what she could and could not control in those dynamics. Sarah's still with us. She no longer struggles with panic attacks. She's in a career in sports medicine at a major university and really enjoying her life as a beyond 20-something. Nathan is our second example. Nathan came to us. He's a medical school resident. He came to us on the cusp of a huge emotional turmoil after breaking up with a long-term girlfriend, and was also trying to manage these long shifts for medical school. He also decided that he'd sign up for taking medical boards 3 months earlier prior to his peer group. And he made it very well known that he was doing that in front of his peer group. He struggled with anxiety, depression, really volatile mood swings. What we also learned too is that Nathan started to cope with prescribed medications, but he was abusing them essentially. And once we partnered with our holistic psychiatrist, we were able to see and lift the fog away from Nathan with those prescription. Bleh. I talk all day and then, excuse me. So Nathan, what we were able to do, we partnered with a holistic psychiatrist. We did the same thing as we did with Sarah. We were able to look at the whole body. Also lifting the fog away from the medications made a huge difference. We were able to look at his sleep hygiene, his food intake, his exercise, his mindfulness, and be able to provide him with tools to be able to manage his day. And I am very specific about prescribed medications that were abused by him and being able to take a peek at how we can properly medication management as well. We've also worked with Nathan on meditation skills and mindful moments to be able to prepare him for the exam that he put off until later in the year to be able to manage and cope. So these are just other neurodynamics that we like to play around with ego awareness, ego energy, always exploring interpersonal navigation that impacts work-life stressors. So when we talk about self-care, often we think of activities, and what we like to work with 20-somethings around is the self-care of how we navigate interpersonal dynamics. So when we make a choice to engage with Taylor on a negative conversation or overcommit to a family member. So there's boundaries, parameters, and being able to also step back, draw awareness, take a mindful moment, and decide how you play a role in that. What other speaker wanted to use this term, right? I knew we were kindred spirits. So eudaimonia is, and it just sounds that way, eudaimonia. It's a Greek term that is a quality of well-being, okay? And this comes from experiencing life with intentionality, with mindfulness, and connecting with others and truly connecting with others, as some of the speakers shared. And so it benefits your brain that's still very much developing, relationships, you in your environment, the world around you as well. I haven't checked to make sure I was saying eudaimonia. It's an interesting little term. So these are some steps that we often, the other speakers mentioned this as well, but very simple steps that you can take in terms of drawing awareness and considering where you are in your developmental stage. So just drawing attention to awareness, reflecting for a moment with intention, remembering to breathe. If you haven't taken a breath, to practice some of that breath work, and that develops resiliency over time. Gratitude is something I think it's out alongside the field of positive psychology as well. In practicing daily gratitude with our clients, I remind them to keep it very simple. This can go along with some of the self-affirmations and the positive comments. Gratitude, 1 to 3, 1 to 5 simple statements around gratitude. So for instance, I could say, I'm so grateful you all are still listening. Like, it's 7:25, right? Or I'm grateful for, my home, some of those pieces and parts. I had a great cup of soup for lunch today. So keep it simple and keep it where you are able to reflect inward and then outward and practice those daily. So there's lots of really yummy data around gratitude and all of that good stuff. So now I've had the privilege of working with a lot of U of M students, and there's so much awareness and so much commitment to mental and behavioral health on this campus. And oftentimes there's a workshop and there's an event, and it's a little bit more of like a popcorn effect. So we're hoping to conduct a couple follow-up sessions from this head talk tonight. Lexi placed that scan me on there, which is pretty amazing. It's much better than my very tiny font up there on the left. So take a peek at this, and if you have any other questions or, and we can leave this up on the screen as well.
So, yeah.
Oh, that's more stuff about me. So if you have any questions about our model of care as well as my background, and I'd be happy to talk with you about that as well.
Does anyone have any questions? For the raffle.
What does kind of a day in your life look like? What do you do on a daily basis at your department?
Pick a day. Pick Tuesday for work. That's a great question. It changes often because our approach is very individualized. So we take the individual we're able to meet with them on several occasions to kind of design a blend that makes sense for them. If they're coming along with a larger family unit, then we get to know the family unit. I meet clients anywhere from an office space to the dog park to a yoga mat, really trying to reduce the barriers that go along with accessing therapeutic care. And then we also have a team approach, so we also try to connect them to our holistic psychiatrists, yoga, meditation, and really treat that as a team approach and just follow their lead. And then I have to feed my kids a lot and keep up with my own self-care, so it kind of changes on a daily basis. And I'm always learning. This is so fun to be able to be exposed to other folks in the field too.
Any other questions before we do the raffle?
Oh yeah, there's another.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's put up the, everyone give a round of applause. So just reiterating this, so November 11th, we're doing a chat and chew, which is kind of like a follow-up to this. I know a lot of people feel like, oh, I went to this awesome event, but I want to speak about it more, talk about it in sort of like a low-key, like chill environment. And Brooke has been so gracious to provide food for this event as well. So take a scan. You just literally have to open up your camera and just like hold it up, and the link should pop up. But RSVP on Eventbrite, and now we're going to do a raffle for this wonderful blend box.
Yeah, so we have blend boxes. It's really fun. We often pair these up with our clients quarterly or monthly, and it's just a box of either resources or goodies that we're feeling really excited about. This happens to be a great book by Dr. Dan Siegel. Chocolate, some other goodies in here, and also some tickets to a show that's coming up to the Michigan Theater. So why don't
you pick? I'll just like ruffle it.
Okay.
Close your eyes.
Close my eyes. How's everyone doing? Y'all should like get up and do some. Olivia Keener. Yes, that felt. Yes. That's like a Price is Right moment. She just got super excited. That's awesome. We may raffle off some more too. Thank you for submitting your information too. We'll take a peek and see what we can do. Yeah. Have fun. Okay, let's get this off so I don't. Yeah.
So I just want to say thank you so much for everyone coming out tonight. Thank you so much to our 5 wonderful speakers. So we have the room until like 8, so people can come around, mix and mingle. I think most of the speakers are in this area. Traci's right here, Marna's in the back. But I'll have them all come up to the front, and you guys can all ask any questions that you would like. But thank you so much again, and there's a little QR code again for feedback, so I would really appreciate if all of you would just kind of go on there, and there's only like a few questions that you like have to answer, but just so we get kind of feedback on the session and each of the speakers. So thank you so much, and feel free to reach out to me or any of the speakers. Oh yeah, also if you're here for IDEO, make sure that you scan out. Yeah, and get cookies. Please take a lot of cookies. Like really take a lot. Take like 5.